Rich teen laughed at black teen clothes, then she walked the runway in Paris. The bell had not yet rung when the hallway filled with the soft shine of polished shoes and the bright click of phone cameras. Tessa Reed stood in the middle like the hall belonged to her. She wore a cream blazer with gold buttons and a silk scarf that matched the school crest. The scarf fluttered when she laughed. Next to her locker, Amaia Nkrumah held a jacket she had sewn herself, deep brown denim, neat top-stitching, and a row of buttons she had found in a thrift store bin. It looked simple, but the seams were perfect. Tessa's voice sliced the air. "Did you knit that on a bus?" Someone snorted. A phone went up. In those first seconds, Amaia felt herself shrink, as if the lights above were too bright and her jacket too loud. The title of the day, Rich Teen Laughed at Black Teen Clothes, Then She Walked the Runway in Paris, was not in anyone's mind yet. All Amaia knew was the heat in her cheeks, the weight in her throat, and the sting of being seen and not seen at the same time. The video went online before first period ended. It was cut so that only Tessa's punchlines made it in. "Stitch and cry couture," Tessa said, and the hall gasped like a chorus trained to be cruel. The clip looped. Words slid under it. Budget Barbie, fashion fail, and worse. Amaia stared at her phone in the bathroom stall. She counted her breaths like her mom had taught her. 4 in, 4 out, while the cold stall door pressed against her knees. In her backpack lay the thing the video did not show, a worn black sketchbook with soft corners and specks of thread stuck to the cover. Inside were pencil lines that looked like speed and light, dresses that moved like river water, jackets shaped like shields, skirts that carried secret messages in their hems. At home, her mom called it the Book of Almosts. Almost enough fabric, almost enough time, almost enough courage to show someone who could help. Amaia slid the sketchbook into her lap and flipped to a spread of a long coat with a rising sun pattern sewn with tiny pieces of old shirts. She touched the page and told herself in a whisper, "One day." That afternoon, she worked at the community center. Her job was to help set up the pop-up stands. Used books, baked goods, handmade earrings, and the table where her mom, Abina, fixed clothes for people who could not afford new ones. The center smelled like cinnamon rolls and mended cotton. A radio played soft Afrobeats, and sun slipped through high windows. Amaia laid out flyers. Repair Day. Save your favorite clothes. On a whim, she placed her sketchbook at the edge of the table, open to the rising sun coat. She did not think anyone would notice. But Ila Manon, a local stylist with a small studio near the bus station, stopped short the moment she saw the drawings. Ila wore wide-leg pants, beat-up sneakers, and a tape measure around her neck like a scarf. She flipped through the pages slowly, making a low sound in her throat each time a new silhouette surprised her. "Who did these?" she asked. Amaia lifted her hand. Ila looked at the thrift jacket, at the clean stitches on the cuffs, at the way the shoulders sat smooth and right. "Did you make that?" Amaia nodded. Ila leaned in, voice gentle. "These are not almost. These are ready." They sat at the folding table with paper cups of hot tea. Amaia spoke in a small voice at first. She told Ila about her mom's second-hand Singer machine, the quiet hours after homework when the house hummed and the needles sang, the fabric she found for pennies and turned into something that felt like herself. She did not talk about the video. She did not need to. Ila had eyes. She had seen the phones in the hall, the way mean spreads faster than truth. When Amaia finished, Ila pulled out her phone and showed her emails. "I consult for a few houses," she said. "Mostly small ones that get swallowed by the big names. But one of them, Maison Leroux, is in a panic. Their junior line crashed. They need fresh hands, fresh eyes, fresh story." She hesitated. "They asked me to scout for new voices. I was going to say no because I hate the speed and I hate the way they chew up kids. But your lines," she looked at the sketchbook again, "they are strong. Your stitching is strong. And your story, you do not have to tell it with tears. You tell it with seams." Ila slid a card across the table. "Come to my studio tomorrow. Bring your jacket. Bring your courage." At home, the kitchen light was warm and the sink was full of dishes. Abena listened while Amaia explained. She did not smile right away. She dried her hands and sat. "Paris?" she asked. "Not yet," Amaia said quickly. "Just a studio talk. Just a maybe." Amaia looked at the jacket draped over the chair. She rubbed the hem between her fingers. "This hem," she said, voice soft. "I taught you that stitch when you were 9. You cried because your fingers hurt." She laughed then, small and proud. "Okay, we will see. We will bring a needle and thread on the bus. We will bring snacks and a phone charger and faith." She put 2 plates on the table. Leftover jollof rice, plantains fried, sweet and crisp. "Also," she added, eyes flashing, "we will not read any more of those comments. They do not buy bread. They do not pay rent. They are not the voice we listen to." The next morning, the studio smelled like fabric glue and coffee. Rolls of fabric leaned in the corner like sleeping giants. The walls were lined with racks of samples, jackets with daring shoulders, shirts that draped like stories, skirts that swung like bells. Hila had set up a work table with a neat row of tools, sharp shears, chalk, pins, needles, a seam ripper that looked like a small dagger for tiny battles. Next to it sat a tablet with a video call open. The face on the screen was a woman in her 40s with short hair and clear eyes. "Bonjour," she said. "I am Estelle from Maison Leroux. Hila speaks highly of you." Amaia swallowed, her tongue thick with nerves. Estelle did not waste time. "Show me the jacket," she said. Amaia held it up. Estelle leaned closer to the camera. "Turn the cuff." Amaia did. "Turn the hem." Amaia did. Estelle smiled a little. "Okay," she said. "Now take those blue cottons and make me a sleeve cap I have not seen before." She set a timer for 1 hour and added, "And tell me a story while you sew." Amaia's hands shook on the first cut. She steadied them by speaking. She told Estelle about her mom, about Ghanaian wax prints turned into patches, about old school uniforms cut down and given new life, about the way she found beauty in straight lines, in patience, in making a raw edge smooth. Hila watched, arms folded, eyes warm. When the hour ended, a new sleeve lay on the table. It was not perfect, but it had a tiny pleat at the shoulder that gave it a lifted look, like it wanted to stand tall. Estelle was quiet for a long moment. "We have a junior show in Paris in 3 weeks," she said. "A slot just opened because someone dropped out. It is too fast. It is a terrible idea. It is the only idea I love right now. If you and your mother agree, we will fly you out. You will design one look. You will walk in it. If it works, we talk more. If it does not, you still learn." She leaned forward. "But I must be honest. It will be hard. People in this world can be as sharp as broken needles. Are you ready?" Amaia looked at her mom. Abina lifted her chin. "My daughter," she said, "has been ready since the first time she burned her fingers and still finished the hem." The school did not hear about Paris at first. Amaia told only her art teacher, Ms. Lin, who cried a little and then became fierce, making a list of things Amaia needed: a passport, a practice runway, extra needles, a soft pair of flats for after heels. They measured the gym for a fake walk. Ms. Lin played music on an old speaker and made the track teacher pretend to be paparazzi with his whistle. At night, Amaia and her mom worked in their kitchen, fabric spread over the table, pattern pieces pressed under bowls so the cat would not steal them. They built the look from things that should not go together but did: thrift denim, wax print sunbursts, silk scraps from a donation bin. The jacket's humble fabric came back, but reborn. Seams covered in tiny hand stitches, a collar lined with a strip of soft gold, an inside pocket embroidered with one word in Ghanaian Twi. Crom. Home. The skirt flowed when Amaia turned. The top had clean lines that made her stand tall. Hila came by once a day, asked questions, took photos for Estelle, and then left them to make their own choices. "You are the voice," Hila said whenever they doubted. "Not me. Of course the hallway found out." On a Monday morning, the vice principal called Amaia out of math class and asked her to bring the jacket for a school pride photo. When she stepped into the office, Tessa was there, flipping through a magazine. For a second, Tessa looked like she might say something kind. Then her eyes flicked to the jacket, then to the vice principal, and she smirked. "Oh," she said, "we are celebrating." "Recycling?" The vice principal cleared his throat, moved them in front of the school flag, and smiled too wide for the camera. Tessa posted a shot of the back of Amaia's head with the caption, "Local slow fashion star." The leaf emoji stung more than the words. That night, a new edit of the old video popped up, this time with comments that used Amaia's Paris news like a joke. "From bus to runway? Sure, Jan. DIY and Dior?" The worst came from a fake account that called her a token. Amaia put her phone face down. She felt like the air had a weight. She went to the kitchen and set up the machine anyway. "We sew," Abina said, threading the needle. "We cook, we pray. We sleep, we rise. People will say what they say. The seams will say more." The day they flew, the sky over the city was pale and high. The plane smelled like coffee and clean plastic. Amaia pressed her forehead to the window and watched clouds turn the world into soft mountains. In Paris, everything looked like a movie. Tall buildings with old faces, streets that curled like ribbon, cafes that spilled tiny chairs onto sidewalks. The Maison Leroux studio was a warehouse with warm lights and a long table covered in chalk marks. The team moved fast but kind. Estelle hugged them with both arms. "We are small but loud," she said. "We will make a small space feel big." They fitted Amaia's look to her body like they were telling her she belonged to her own shape. The first time she walked the practice runway, she felt her heart kick like a drum. She stumbled. She laughed. The second time, she found a steady beat. Toe, heel, breathe, look. Hilly whispered at the end, "You have to think about someone you love at the turn. It softens your eyes without making you cry." Amaia thought about her mother's hands. The turn became easy. 2 days before the show, a problem hit like a cold wind. A shipment of shoes got stuck in customs. Models were barefoot. Estelle pressed her fingers to her forehead. "We cannot have 23 perfect looks and a barefoot line," she said. "We will be a meme by morning." Amaia stared at the box of thrift belts they had used for fitting. An idea dropped into her head like a gift. "What if we cut the belts and make straps and tie them over simple soles?" she asked. "Like sandals, but sharp. The leather would match the browns in my jacket. The knots would show the work." Estelle blinked. Ela grinned. The team got to work, cutting, punching holes, threading leather, burning edges smooth with a lighter. By night, the models walked in sandals that looked intentional, tough, and new. When Estelle thanked her, Amaia shook her head. "My mom taught me," she said. "When you have a problem, you go to the drawer and see what you already own." Back home, the school set up a projector in the hallway. Miss Lynn did it with her own money, then begged the vice principal to let kids watch during lunch. "It is educational," she said. "It is global." The hallway where the first video had been shot now had a white sheet taped to the wall. The projector hummed. Phones waited. Even the kids who liked to act unimpressed leaned in. Tessa stood against her locker, arms folded, trying to look bored. The stream went live. Paris came into the hallway like a blessing. A long room with rows of faces, a track that glowed, cameras clicking like summer insects. The music started, low and steady. Models moved like tides. Then, near the end, a new shape appeared from the wings. Amaia. She wore the jacket reborn as Couture. The humble denim shone under the lights, not because it was expensive, but because every seam told a story. The sunburst pattern rose along the right side like a promise kept. The inside pocket lay over her heart, close enough to feel like a small secret. The skirt brushed the floor with a whisper. The sandals tied over her feet made her step feel grounded and brave. Amaia walked like she had something worth carrying. At the turn, she lifted her eyes and thought of her mother. Her face softened. The room quieted the way rooms do when something right is happening. In the hallway, someone whispered, "Wow." Someone else said, "Wait, that's our school." A boy with a hoodie said, "She made that." The chat bubbled. "Who is she? Where did she come from?" Under the stream, the caption read, "From thrift to Paris. Talent always fits." After the show, backstage was a storm of hugs, laughter, and fast French. Estelle kissed both of Amaia's cheeks. "You saved us twice," she said. "First with your sleeve. Now with your sandals. You walk like you mean it." Reporters lined up like a small tide. They asked questions about inspiration, about fabric, about the word stitched inside her jacket. Amaia kept her answers simple. "I love clothes that tell the truth," she said. "I love taking old things and making them proud again." Someone from a magazine asked, "How do you feel about the video?" The word fell like a stone. Amaia thought about the bathroom stall. She thought about the hallway projector. She thought about the label on her pocket. Home. "A clip is not a life," she said. People saw a joke. They did not see the nights. They did not see my mother's hands. They did not see the lines in my book. If they watch this and feel sorry for me, that is not the point. If they watch and remember their own almost, and try again, that is the point. The reporter wrote fast. Hila stood behind her, eyes shining. At the same time, in the school hallway, the camera caught a small thing that nobody missed. Tessa's face changing. She started with a smirk. When the caption flashed, "From thrift to Paris. Talent always fits." Her mouth opened just a little. Not ugly shock. Not jealousy alone. Something else. A tiny crack. A thought she had not allowed. Her friend Ava leaned toward her. "You know you were kind of awful, right?" Ava said, voice soft. Tessa did not answer. She watched the screen until the stream ended, and the hallway filled with the familiar buzz of kids pretending they were not moved. She walked away fast. In the bathroom, she sat on the closed toilet and stared at the floor. Her hands shook. In her bag, her phone buzzed with texts. "Girl, you seeing this? You made her famous LOL. Say something." Tessa typed and erased 3 times. Finally, she wrote to Amaia. "I am sorry." She stared at the word. It looked small. It looked late. She added, "I was wrong. You are. Wow." She did not hit send. When Amaia and Abina flew back, the airport felt like a small town. People pointed politely, then smiled when they realized it was her. At home, the community center threw a party with paper plates and a playlist that jumped from high life to pop. Hila brought a cake shaped like a jacket. Miss Lynn brought a framed photo of Amaia's turn. The vice principal tried to make a speech about nurturing talent, and Miss Lynn coughed loudly until he kept it short. In a quiet corner, Tessa stood holding a gift bag. She looked like she had not slept enough. Amaia saw her and felt a knot in her stomach. She did not want a scene. She did not want to fight at her own party. She walked over anyway. Tessa tried to talk and then blinked fast like tears were a problem she could not fix with money. "I was cruel," Tessa said, the words landing plain. "I thought I was clever. I was just loud." She held out the bag. Inside was a small box of silk-covered buttons. Old and beautiful, the kind you do not find in chain stores. "My grandma left these," Tessa said. "I thought maybe your clothes could use them better than my drawer." She swallowed. "I am sorry. If you say no, I will understand." Amaia looked at the buttons. Each one had a tiny flower stitched in the middle. They were careful work, a little like the careful work it takes to say, "I'm sorry," in front of people who knew you when you were not kind. She thought about the hallway. She thought about Paris. She thought about all the people who had held her up like hands under water. "I cannot fix the video by forgiving you," she said slowly. "And your sorry does not make my work happen. I did that with my mom, with Illa, but I hear you." She closed the box and handed it back. "Keep them. Sew them on your own jacket. Learn to stitch. If you want to help me, help yourself change." Tessa closed her eyes for a second, then nodded. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay." The months rolled by. Maison La Rue Saint-Emile. They offered a small paid summer internship. Not glamorous, not shiny, but real. Pattern cutting, sample mending, coffee runs, fittings. Amaia took it. She learned how a show is 100 small hands doing 1,000 small tasks. She made mistakes, fixed them, made fewer mistakes. She learned to say no when her ideas were not ready, yes when they were. At school, Miss Lin started a make and mend club. Kids brought in old clothes and left with something that felt new. Even the boys in hoodies came, pretending they were only there for the snacks, then staying because the machine's rhythm calmed them. Abina taught Saturday classes on basic stitching. Hila visited with scrap bundles. On a warm evening in June, the club held a tiny show in the gym. Nothing like Paris, everything like home. Parents cheered like they were in a stadium. Amaia walked last in a new version of her sunset jacket, this time with those silk buttons Tessa had kept, now sewn onto Tessa's own blazer, which she had altered herself, crooked but proud. Tessa stood in the front row, clapping until her hands stung. One day, a first-year student with a shy smile and frayed sleeves came to the club with a plastic bag of clothes. She waited until the end and pulled out a notebook. "I draw," she said. Her voice shook the way Amaia's had once shaken. "It is not good." She opened to a page of wild, hopeful lines. Amaia felt a deep, soft heat in her chest. "It is good," she said. "It needs work, like all good things." They stayed late, talking about sleeves and stories. Amaia showed her how to hold the chalk. The girls' lines grew stronger as they laughed. On the way home, Amaia walked slowly. The sun set behind the school, turning the windows gold. She thought about all the rooms she had been in, the bathroom stall, the studio, the runway, and how each one had tried to tell her who she was. She thought about the title that had carried her like a banner and a dare. Rich teen laughed at black teen clothes, then she walked the runway in Paris. The words tasted different now, less like a wound, more like a path she had walked and widened for the next person. Years later, in a brighter studio with her own name on the door, the jacket hung framed over a cutting table. It was still brown denim. The seams still sang. Visitors asked if it was from her first big show. She said yes and no. Yes, because it walked under Paris lights. No, because it started in a kitchen with a mother and a daughter and a needle and a hum. When press teams came for interviews, they always wanted a line that sparkled. She gave them truth instead. "We keep our hands kind," she said. "We keep our stitches honest. We use what we have. We learn what we don't. We love the work even when no one claps. We remember the hallway, and we build a better one." When she closed the shop at night, she sometimes ran her hand over the glass of the frame. She could feel the tiny bumps of the seam under the glass, as if the memory itself had texture. On the anniversary of the Paris show, the community center held a quiet gathering. The same long tables, the same soft music, the same smell of baked things and mended cotton. Hila brought tea. Miss Lin brought her whistle for old times. Tessa, now in college, came in a denim jacket she had stitched herself, the silk buttons from her grandmother shining in a small arc on the cuff. She hugged Abina first. Then she hugged Amaia and said, "Thank you for not letting me be the worst thing I did." Amaia smiled and answered, "Thank you for not staying there." They stood for a moment. Two people changed by a hallway and a runway, and a lot of time in between. Someone asked for a speech. Amaia did not like speeches, but she stepped onto a chair anyway and looked at the faces turned up to her. "A clip is not a life," she said again. "A joke is not a story. A seam is a promise. We keep ours." The room hummed with the quiet sound people make when they agree with their whole bodies. And when the night ended and the chairs were stacked and the lights clicked off, Amaia walked home with her mother. The air was cool. The stars were shy behind a thin cloud. She held her mother's arm the way her mother had once held hers on a bus to a studio that changed everything but did not change who they were. At the door, she turned and looked back down the street, imagining the hallway on the other side of town, the projector, the sheet taped to a wall, the kids who were not born yet, who would one day stand there watching someone else's beginning. She whispered the title like a prayer and a promise. Rich teen laughed at black teen clothes. Then she walked the runway in Paris. Then she went inside, set her sketchbook on the table, threaded her needle, and began again.